Well, hello, Power Partners. Welcome to the Informational Playground. This is Starstyle, Be the Star You Are. We're coming to the airwaves under the auspices of Be the Star You Are charity. I am your host, Cynthia Brian, and we are on Voice America Media. This is the Empowerment Channel. The miracle moment for today is brought to you by Be the Star You Are. And this was written by Bruce Lee. Instead of buying your children the things you never had, teach them the things you were never taught. And I think that is a really very apropos quote for this day and age. So, in today's show, I'm really going to be focusing on two of the guilds of which I am a member, Screen Actors Guild and the Authors Guild, because we're going to be talking about AI banning books and human authored, so that you can find out if a book is actually certified and authored by a human, and licensing. But the first thing I wanted to start off with, because when I got this email, I was like, oh my goodness. So I got this email from Screen Actors Guild AFTRA, and it's about artificial intelligence. And I think it's just better that I kind of read the email to you because I find it fascinating. And then you can look it up on the internet if you want. But so SAG wrote, and Screen Actors Guild is for acting. And now what is happening is there is a generated synthetic character named Tilly Norwood that is completely AI and looking for an agent, probably going to be starring in movies, etc. So this is what they wrote. Last week, dramatic headlines and a crescendo of news stories broke regarding an AI generated synthetic character named Tilly Norwood and the release of Sora 2 by OpenAI. These developments reignited debate about how artificial intelligence is shaping the film and television industry. The confluence of these stories has broken through the relentless stream of news and information on the subject and focused our collective curiosity and anxiety about the future of creativity itself. It's an opportune time to demonstrate how Screen Actors Guild AFTRA is actually fighting to protect the interests of actors and speak in defense of what it means to be a performer. And just as an aside, as I continue on with this story, in the last couple of years, we as actors, when we work, we can give permission. It is an opt-in, not an opt-out. So if we want to be scanned, to be used for AI, because in the past they just kind of did it without our permission. And of course, that is our livelihood, our voice, our body, and our actions. So let's be clear here. Tilly Norwood is not a person. This is a synthetic construct. It's generated by software trained on the work of countless professional performers, real human beings. And this is the work was taken without permission, without credit, and without compensation. Just as I was saying, this is what they would do. And I think they've made this perfect, absolutely stunning woman now, who is a compilation of all the best things of any actor, that they've seen. So when news outlets tease the story of a more realistic looking artificial creation as an entertainment industry breakthrough, or they stoke a non-existent star signing competition among agencies, this is missing the fundamental truth that Tilly is, I mean, for other people, Tilly is not the threat. The real danger is coming from an unregulated environment that can only flourish by stealing, and the word stealing here is important, digital information from artists and companies and then using it without ethics or respect. And this story of creating a synthetic character, it's not about novelty, it's about authorship, it's about consent, and it's about the value of human artistry. Now, when you anthropomorphize the synthetic fake, it gives it a memorable name. It plays up the character's representation of beauty. It's not objective or authentic, and it's a distraction, and it's a misdirection from what is actually taking place. So, what has been created is a sensationalized narrative designed to manipulate the public and make space for continued exploitation. So the public release of Sora 2 and its remarkably advanced capabilities made observers really excited. But for many people, the lightning fast technology, this evolution is really, really bringing concern. And I can just say, as an actor who is your livelihood, this is your profession, this is how you make money, it's like how you go to work every day. It's a very scary thing to think you are totally going to be replaced by AI. And you're already seeing it. If you go on YouTube and you listen to any podcast and you hear, in between podcasts, there's always these advertisements or commercials. And if you pay attention, you're going to realize that most of the voices are AI generated and a lot of the images are AI generated. And they start to all kind of sound the same, but they're made to try to sound like humans. But sadly, there isn't any human that is getting compensated for that work. Now, as I said, the OpenAI's decision to honor copyright only through an opt-out model, that's the way it was opt-out, it threatens the economic foundation of the entire acting industry, and it underscores the stakes in the litigation currently working through the courts. So if AI companies can shift the burden to right holders to opt out, what does copyright really mean? Because opt out is not consent and it's not informed consent. And that's why SAG-AFTRA is fighting for opt in approaches. And no one's creative work, image, likeness, or voice should be used without affirmative, informed consent. And anything less is an unjustifiable violation of our rights. Now, Screen Actors Guild continues, they write that Sora's 2 approach to image likeness and voice replication through its cameo function does deserve recognition because the feature allows you to create a digital replica of yourself and control its use within Sora 2, and that includes whether others can access it. But critically, this approach is opt-in, and that does make all the difference. So while the controls and details remain imperfect, they incorporate core principles of informed consent, and then they implement them systematically, reflecting months of dialogue between SAG-AFTRA and OpenAI, along with dedicated work of the AI task force and staff and of course, Screen Actors Guild. We all hope that more AI companies will follow OpenAI's lead in this respect. But fundamentally, we have to remember and remind everyone that audiences don't build emotional connections or lifelong relationships with the logarithms. They connect with people, they connect with artists. They see themselves reflected in a real human performance, in the joy, the heartbreak, the jealousy, the love, the resilience, the truth that only a real human can express. So whether it's Homer or Shakespeare or today's storytellers, performance has always been a mirror of our shared humanity, and no data set or generative model can capture that spark. AI is getting more realistic looking, but audiences will always gravitate to that which is real and true because they want to know that the artist really feels what they're feeling in a laugh, a sob, a smile, a tear. And when the artist is moved, they want to know that what they are feeling is real and they want proof. So the intent of the actor or the artist is what makes it real. So If you scrape, feed, or otherwise deconstruct the love or anger into a trillion component parts and then reassemble it, for AI, and it's manipulated and repurposed without telling the audience exactly where it came from, you are cheapening their experience and unmooring their reality. So I'm happy that our union is fighting and will continue to fight for strong enforceable protections, because throughout labor history, when new technologies emerge and are adopted by business, workers are always disadvantaged, and then unions have to fight to protect us. So, so far, here's what the law does not yet protect. We do have Screen Actor Guild has contracts that bind signatory employers. So that means that they can't stop AI developers from scraping performances off the internet or from training models on decades of film and television without permission. So this is why SAG-AFTRA is leading the fight for stronger laws. They want a No Fakes Act, which would prohibit unauthorized digital replicas. They want the TRAIN Act, which would require transparency in training data sets. They want the AI Accountability and Data Protection Act, and that would create a federal tort for unauthorized use of biometric data. And in California and in New York, those two states have championed legislation requiring transparency and disclosure when synthetic performers are used. So of course, it's well known that companies are going to push the limits. They're going to market synthetic performers as the next big thing. And while tools like Sora 2 will generate awe for their technical prowess, audiences, I think, will continue to show that what moves them most is not simulation, it's sincerity. So the real connection happens only when a living performer is going to bring story to life. So the commitment from Screen Actors Guild, AFTRA, is really simple. It's unwavering. And what we are standing for is that performance must remain human-centered. AI can enhance creativity, but it cannot replace it. AI has to be transparent, consensual, and compensated. And if you're interested in learning any more about what Screen AFTRA is doing for the entertainment industry, you can go to sagaftra.org/AI. And so just, let's just remind ourselves that what moves us is not synthetic, it's human. And as long as Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA exists, humanity is going to be defended. And I, as an actor and longtime member of Screen Actors Guild, I applaud that. And that brings me to my second topic that I want to talk about, but I'll just take a very quick break and then we're going to go to that. And it is the AI licenses options for authors and what authors need to know. Because my new book, Flap Forward, Fly Free, has just come out and it is certified as human authored. So like on my website now, you'll find the logos human authored after all the books, because there are so many millions of books now that are being produced that are AI. So stay with me. You're listening to Cynthia Brian. This is Starstyle, Be the Star You Are. We're going to talk about AI licensing and what authors need to know, the fight for authors' rights in the age of artificial intelligence, when we come back. Well, we are back. Thank you so much for staying here with me, Cynthia Brian, on Star Style, Be the Star You Are. If you're just joining us, we are on the Voice America Media, the Empowerment Channel. And Today's topic is all about IA, licensing, and what authors should know, as well as what's being done in the entertainment industry with actors. But this is the Authors Guild. I'm also a longtime member of the Authors Guild. And Authors Guild has sent this out in their latest magazine that artificial intelligence companies are illegally copying authors' books from pirate ebook sites to develop their large language models. The acronym is LLMS. And they did this without obtaining consent from authors or publishers, and they don't provide any compensation. And that means that authors and publishers have zero means of controlling the use of their books for training or for any way to see how those outputs would work. Now, this has led to the unrestricted use of LLMs, large language models, to generate copycat books that mimic or incorporate authors' works. So, what the Authors Guild is doing, they're seeking to move AI companies away from their current reliance on fair use to licensing regimes where right holders can say no to the use of their works or to engage in licensing on terms and conditions they believe are fair. And that includes restrictions on output use. And before I go talk about the ongoing fight, I can say that it's interesting in the art world or photography world, if you go online and you grab a photo that was published by the Associated Press, for example, and you put it on your website, most likely you are going to be caught and you are going to, it could even take years, and you're going to have to pay a license to, even if you've used it one time. And I know from experience, because we had that experience with Be the Star You Are, of grabbing something from Hurricane Katrina years ago, and then, what is it, 18 years later, having to pay a license fee when we didn't know we had to. But I understand that this is the way compensation has to work. Now, the ongoing fight for Authors Guild, they've been working on this for the last 2 years because there's flagrant theft of books and journalism by AI companies on all fronts. And here's what the Authors Guild has already accomplished. They have initiated litigation against AI companies for infringing authors' copyrights. They've lobbied for amendments to copyright law that would clarify AI training on all copyrighted works that are not fair use, so that there is AI transparency legislation. They developed the human authored certification that authors can use to show that their books are human written. These are the ones I was telling you. You can see the logo on my website. They have recommended protective clauses for authors' book contracts to prevent unauthorized AI use. And they are collaborating with key stakeholders, and that includes licensing agencies, lawmakers, publishers, that can ensure that the author's interests are going to be respected by AI licensing. Because the reality of AI development is this: it's hundreds of billions of dollars have been invested in generative AI. Governments worldwide are working to ensure leadership in AI development. So it's clear we're not going to stop further development of generative AI or these LLMs. So we also know that LLMs need and will continue to need high quality, human authored, copyrighted books and journalism. But what can be stopped, and this is where the Guild comes in, is the unlicensed use of copyrighted books and journalism, and the subsequent unrestricted use of LLMs to create copycat books. And how they're going to do this is licensing by enforcing copyright and bringing control over uses back to the rights holders, so that all professional copyrighted works used to train generative AI are licensed. And when they're licensed, they'll be controlled. So that's going to be true for past use as well as future use. and on license use needs to be converted to control license use. Now, it's hard to understand all this AI licensing because there's naturally some confusion about what licensing would entail, especially as the market develops. So, first of all, licensing enforces copyright. Licenses come with limitations and restrictions, and it also comes with compensations. And the second thing is it would be the giving the authors some choice because it would replace reliance on fair use with licensing systems, and it gives the authors the choice to not license at all if you don't want to. So, for example, I've been going through all my books and have decided which things I want to license, which things I don't. And technical solutions exist. So when a work is used to train LLM, it helps to teach the LLM how to write, and it provides it with the information and expression in the work. So LLM owners do have the ability to prevent generating outputs that would include or compete with the human authored work. And authors have a lot of different interests when it comes to AI licensing. So we got to respect and support that. The survey from Authors Guild shows that about 65% of the membership support a collective licensing system that would pay authors a fee for use of their works in training. And about 38% would be willing to license their work if they could control the output use and then receive additional compensation for substantial use of their work. But the licensing market is really multifaceted. So a work can be licensed without feeding the big LLMs or without allowing outputs that use your work. So we can license for training only. And that means that it blocks any use of the work, as a book. It can only be used to train. And there's all kinds of specialty licensing that is going on as well. So it's a fascinating landscape right now, and it's interesting that I'm having to learn it both in my in both my acting and my authorship. So there's so much licensing that has already occurred, and of course, for the Authors Guild, they want to get it to go faster, and they want a licensing ecosystem where authors will remain at the center with the power to authorize and negotiate fair compensation for all AI uses. And when AI companies are required to obtain licenses for copyrighted material, authors and publishers will have the power to decline licensing requests. And soon they're going to have the tools to detect if any AI models are using their work without licenses and enforcing their rights. And the partnership with Created by Humans, this is a company building a licensing platform that will give authors control over licensing and an opportunity to earn revenue. And Screen Actors Guild is just an official, I mean, not Screen Actors Guild, Authors Guild is an official advisor to make certain that the terms are fair for authors. So it is very interesting. If you want more information on what's happening for authors, you can go to authorsguild.org. And I am part of that Created by Humans. And so I've been working with them to decide whether I want my works to be for licensing, for training, or whatever. But start looking for the logo human authored, and that is a certification, because the AI generated books are just flooding the online marketplace. And a lot of them look alike and sometimes read like a human authored book. And the reader might have no way of knowing if they're coming across an AI generated or an authored by human. So that's why the Authors Guild created this certification process to help. And so it's called Human Authored, and it's the first of its kind official certification that writers and publishers will be able to use in their books in marketing to indicate if the text of a book was human authored. So it's that human authored logo is registered with the US Patent and Trademark Office, and it's supported by registration system. So I have all of my books have a number now that say human authored. And so that can all be traced, which is really fascinating. Now, the final thing that I wanted to talk about in today's episode, because it's all about entertainment and wordsmithing and authors, etc., is the Authors Guild, and I'm happy they're doing this, also has adopted this new foundational principle called no word should be banned. And I think this is very critical in the political atmosphere that we're in today, because as government agencies, educational institutions, grant making bodies, increasingly are implementing language restrictions and word bans across multiple sectors. The Authors Guild Council voted unanimously to formalize its opposition to this very troubling trend. We don't want to ban words. So in March of 2025, the Authors Guild Council added a new core principle to the mission, and this affirms writers' fundamental right to unrestricted vocabulary in the face of growing censorship pressures so that threaten both creative expression and factual reporting, because we really believe that no word should be banned, because words are the raw materials from which writers build their essays, their novels, their poems, their stories, their books. I mean, writers choose their words carefully, and the freedom to choose the right word is fundamental to good writing and to the freedom of expression. And that underpins any open society. And it's really sad today that we're faced with this new and very intrusive form of censorship in the form of regulations and elimination of certain words. Now, the list of banned words reflects a clear ideological agenda, troublesome enough in and of itself, but it sweeps so broadly that it would impede ordinary careful expression of a host of neutral topics. So not only progressive um, words like, intersectionality or LGBTQ, but also everyday words such as equity, bias, diversity, prejudice, inclusion, sex, gender. These are on the list of banned words. This is crazy. So just like a sculptor has to be free to choose if they're going to work in marble or bronze or wood or painted surface or fabric, or whether a painter wants to use oils or acrylics or watercolors, a writer is an artist, and a writer must be free to choose the right word to convey not only a specific assertion, but also the subtle connotations, elusive inflections, nuances of emphasis, and hints of implication. Banning words, and especially banning commonly used and wholly inoffensive ones, not only reflects unjustified prejudice as to how a word might be used, but it also biases writing in favor of clumsy prose and artless expression. And the Authors Guild is standing for the inclusion of a rich diversity of written words. And I just want to say that I stand with that too. Books should not be banned. Words should not be banned. In a free society, we need to be able to have free speech and to have freedom of press and to be able to express ourselves, as we say on our teen show. And I was talking to my handyman actually, who thought for sure, he says that with AI, he really believes that we're going to be watching, all these AI characters in movies. We're going to be having AI books, but then there's probably going to be a saturation point. And I think it's maybe true. So maybe when people start getting replaced, and people are going to be replaced by AI for sure in a lot of aspects, maybe at some point, people are going to rebel and they're going to think to themselves, I don't like this. I want it human authored. I want it human acted. And we'll revert back, kind of like how we had CDs and then we had Spotify and then, you just were streaming. But a lot of people now are going back to vinyl because they love that original sound. So whatever rocks your boat, but I just hope that you will consider that AI is a wonderful thing, but it also needs to be controlled. And creative people, whether they're writers, artists, actors, whatever it is, they need to be compensated for their work. So they can't just be copied and then made into AI. Well, that's the show for today. Thank you for staying with me here on Star Style Be the Star You Are. I'm here with you with a brand new show every Wednesday. You can change your life, you can make your dreams come true, and hopefully, I can bring you some lifestyle information that will make that possible. For more information about me or Star Style Productions, visit cynthiabrian.com. That's BRIAN.com. If you'd like to get involved with the charity or just find out what Be the Star You Are is up to, please visit bethestaryouare.org. And by the way, I do have a Substack, and it is called Starstyle Empowerment. And I invite you to join up to Starstyle Empowerment if you are interested in keeping up with more things that I'm writing about. My aim is always to encourage, inspire, inform, amuse, and motivate. See beyond your physical being. Know you are the star you dreamed of becoming. Cherish the past, dream of the future, but celebrate this moment. And my book is supposed to be out on Friday. So flap forward, fly free. I hope you'll pick up a copy. It will be available at Amazon or at cynthiabrian.com or at bethestaryouare.org. Until next week, when we celebrate once again, remember that love always wins, kindness always prevails, and smiles will keep us happy. I am Cynthia Brian for Star Style. I thank you and encourage you to be kind, be inclusive, tell the truth, live with integrity, embrace cultures, love unconditionally, encourage others, be generous, read, lead, succeed, communicate, collaborate, and innovate, and most importantly, be your unapologetically authentic self because everyone counts. Until we play again on the Star Style Playground, go out in the world and be the star you are.